I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., SVP, Executive Editor at Large at Black Enterprise. Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Hype. Really important conversation lined up for you. And I'm the perfect person to have this conversation. Listen, one of the things that we're really talking about now in the midst of the pandemic and whether to open schools and how do we educate our children is this idea of educating our children versus schooling our children. That was raised by another Beyond the Hype guest, David C. Banks of Eagle Academy. And both for necessity and often, just out of being imaginative, parents and educators are looking for new ways to educate their children. Our guest is Sabrina Lamb, the founder and CEO of worldofmoney.org. And she has a package and a program that is going through many, many changes and growth that speaks right to this conversation of, in the case of Black Americans in particular, how do we prepare our children in this environment to be wealth creators? And what does that really mean? And Sabrina, welcome to the show, first of all, Sabrina. Thank you.
Honored to be here, sir.
Well, I want to have this conversation with you because when David raised that question, and I've had other conversations with, again, parents who are trying to figure out what to do with their kids at home, that's going to be meaningful, but also this opportunity to even rethink what we mean by education. And I thought about you and I'm like, back in the day, and you started World of Money in 2005, everybody was talking about, oh, we need financial education for our children. We were all talking about it. You went and actually did something about it. So maybe the best way to start is to talk about what World of Money is, what it was when you started in 2005, and what's happened since then over the last 15 years to bring it to what it is today, which is a premier financial education program. Not just, it's targeted to Black kids and Black families, but it's one of the top programs of this type, regardless of the demographic. So talk about that.
Thank you. And Alfred, again, it's an honor to be here. When I look at pivotal points in my philanthropic life, you have been there at all of the seminal moments, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. When I think about creating World of Money back in 2005, I was minding my own business. I was doing radio, I was doing stand-up, I was writing books, I was doing whatever I was doing. But I was in attendance to a financial workshop, and sometimes in life you receive an epiphany, and it said, what if children, particularly those who look like you, could receive this same kind of financial information? And then the second question is, well, how different would your life have been, Sabrina, if you had financial education as a child? Well, the answer is, Alfred, it would be totally different because I was a walking sociopath in the household, okay? So my job was to make sure that I had a new wardrobe or whatever it was, and to leverage the conflict, the financial conflict between my parents and extended family to get what I wanted. And guess what? It worked. And that's why I really relate very well with children, because I know they're financial terrorists. I get it, because that was me. So I looked around in 2005 and I said, so there must be someone out here doing it, an organization doing this. And even 15 years later, worldofmoney.org is still the only organization in the world that provides 120 immersive classroom hours, Alfred, of financial education. This idea, Alfred, of having a 45-minute workshop and, wagging our fingers about what we should do and how, it's more than that. So if we're really serious about playing generation up, it means sitting down and become educated and go through courses. Just like when we majored in finance or majored in history, it wasn't a 45-minute course. But before we get to the educational part, what's the rule of 72, the compound interest, and that sort of thing, we really need to unpack our value system and what we believe about money. And why do I say that? Because years ago, one of my students, he was visiting from Virginia, and I said, you want to have financial security, don't you? And he's 10 years old, and he says, no. And I said, what? I said, why not? And he said, because that's not what Black people do. I said, but don't you believe that you should, live a financially secure life? And he goes, I said, stop the presses. We're going to have to slow down in terms of getting to credit and FICO scores and budgeting and all that, and spend a lot of time changing the mindsets and the belief systems and how children value their own life. Because the majority of our spending is emotional and it's based upon what we believe. So we can say save, save, save all day long, but if you do not believe that your life is worth saving, you will not save one nickel. I remember Mike Tyson years ago. We was talking with him, and he said he gave away the $500 million that he earned in boxing because he didn't believe that he deserved to have it. And so we have to start there and really unpack. That's what I wrote, my book that you supported. Do I look like an ATM? That unpacks the different mindsets about money. Because often when you talk about money and wealth generation, wealth building, everyone wants to go invest. Tell me what I should invest in. But first, we have to unpack what your beliefs are. Will you sign a document without reading it first? Are you afraid to say no to power structures that I have to read it? Are you ashamed of not? We have to get there before you go and invest in anything or follow some new on the horizon Pied Piper that's there to really rip you off. So this money thing is a spiritual conversation. It's a spiritual understanding. And if we're serious about this thing called wealth building and transformation and all that sort of thing, we have to find out what's going on in here and what's going on in our heart and what we believe. Because if we believe that our life matters and Black lives matter, then we would start saving more. One of
the reasons I've always been such a big fan of yours as a human being, but also your work, is you and I are on the same page. That if you don't get into why we feel the way we do about our money, and I'm speaking both as an expert because of my years at Black Enterprise, but from personal experience. I mean, I was 40 years old before I realized that though I had successfully made it into the Black middle class, I was still managing money and resources the way I was raised. And I was raised in a working poor household in a working class neighborhood. And so my values around money, and it's not even that values are good or bad, it's about, are they applicable to what you say your goals are and where you are in your current part of your life. And so your point about getting to that before you start getting into the technical nuts and bolts of what is a stock and what is a bond and what, if you don't fix that first part, you'll have very educated people making very poor financial decisions, which is
absolutely
what I was.
And according to the Organization of Economic and Community Development, the United States is number 17th in the world when it comes to financial education, 17th in the world. Number 1 is China. They're very intentional about entrepreneurship and financial education. So that's why you see many of them, and even when you look at the continent of Africa, many of our students, that I mentor, they don't have any social or financial safety net. So you would want to start saving your money. You would want to start creating a business because there's no unemployment, no social security. You have to do something. And so, we really need to just really start, start with the basics and understanding and then take action. And not even just release any shame or embarrassment or what you feel you don't know. I'm learning every single day. But my life's work for the last 15 years, Alfred, it's about making sure that children can change the financial trajectory of their life, that they can speak fluently with the corridors of power on Wall Street like anybody else. So their self-esteem is not, they don't feel defeated when they're going to school with someone that has a portfolio. They know what that is. That's one of my missions.
Let me just say right here to our listeners and viewers, if you do nothing else after this conversation, if you do nothing else, get Sabrina's book, Do I Look Like an ATM? Especially if you have children in your life as a parent or as an auntie or uncle or grandparent, you want to get that book. That's still one of the best books that I've ever read. And I'm always singing the praises of that book. If you really want to have serious conversations about financial literacy for yourself and your own values, but with your children, So again, if you do nothing else, I'm hoping you do a lot more than just get the book, but you got to get that book. NAACP Image Award nominated book. So, critically acclaimed, but just a very important read that I think should be in every Black family's household. But that said, let's circle back to what you've been able to accomplish with the young people who have come through your program. And you talk about children being emotional terrorists. You also kind of use them as almost devil agents, because people think of, oh, the parents' values are transferred to the children, but you've done a lot of times. I'm speaking as someone who knows the program fairly well. I had the honor of being a guest lecturer for one of the classes, but often you've shared with me stories of how the children will actually transform the values of the parents. And the parents become more financially educated because instead of going parent to child, the child is the one coming home saying, listen, this is what we really need to be doing. And it awakens a new sensibility in the parents. So talk a little bit about that whole transformation, that when you're touching a child and they're on fire about something, it often has a ripple effect on the whole family.
Absolutely. So our approach is holistic. So every day, what children learn, ages 7 to 18 at World of Money, part of their wealth work that they do at home is with their parents and having a conversation. So instead of the conversation, turn those lights off, or I don't have it, or whatever it is, to start saying, and children ask for those things or manipulate parents for those things that have zero value, because they don't know what the operation expenses are of the household. And once they do know, because children are compassionate, they love their parents, but they're really fair-minded. And when they say, you are paying $145 a month for cable, what? Then they understand. And those conversations in terms of what they have to have and the new this and the new that, it changes because they understand that the house, the family unit, whatever that family unit is really a business. They have income, outcome, revenues, liabilities, assets. And what our determination is at World of Money is to empower children so they become the financial team leaders, so that they go home and say, Mom, Dad, let's have a meeting this week or every week. What is our goal, our savings goal as a family between now and the end of the year? So that we have two things, options and access. So when life happens, we don't have to call Alfred Edmond and say, can you help me? Because we have some, savings or whatever it is. When children understand the economic, the financial impact of their decisions and the manipulation and pouting with their parents, it's a whole new day. It's a whole new day. Now, I will say, because I remember a young woman, she was probably in high school, and the mother came to me and she wanted to enroll her in World of Money, and the child didn't want to go because the child was saying, I don't have to do this because my mama's going to pay for this and pay for that. And the mother allowed this to happen, okay? Allowed this child, who was going to be an adult, allowed this to happen. I said, let me just tell you something. I said to the daughter with the mother standing there, you can do that with your mama, but you're not going to do that here, right? In terms of manipulation and to be unkind and have zero empathy for your mother and how much she's working to support you to purchase all the items that's on your body right now that have zero value. Unfortunately, Alfred, she did not come to World of Money. And I never understood why. But they need someone to tell them like it is. I love children. We have a great relationship, but they know, look, you're not that cute, little boy, little girl. I'm gonna tell you like it is.
One of the barriers that your program and you personally have broken, that I tell people is the most, and I'm speaking as a Black enterprise and an expert in the space, just to be able to have the conversation in families where we've been taught you don't talk about that.
That's right.
And once you can't talk about it, it locks the family and from generation to generation into the same habits over and over again because you don't talk about it. And the light bulb came on for me as a parent. My oldest daughter, I've told this story many times, so she won't be embarrassed anymore that I tell it again. But when she was about maybe 12, she wanted some Air Jordans. And of course, Air Jordans are, And I'm like, you're not a pro basketball player. You don't even play basketball. Why am I going to spend that kind of money? But she wanted them because obviously everybody wanted them. And so me and her mother made a deal. We were like, we'll put up half. You got to save the other half. So when she started having to save the money, then she started looking at prices. As soon as she figured out she could get a regular pair of Nikes for like 20% of some Air Jordans, she was like, you know what? I don't really need these Jordans. But again, just being able to have that conversation at age 12, and today she's an excellent money manager and business person. I mean, growing up a Black enterprise kid didn't help, but I mean, it didn't hurt. But my point is, just being able to have those conversations changes things. And you know, in too many Black households and brown households, you're taught, don't even bring it up. Don't even ask. None of your business.
Absolutely. It's amazing how children, they're no longer interested in that thing when it comes out of their pocket. They really understand the difference between their money and your money, right? And so when you say, okay, yeah, let's go shopping. How much money do you have? I'm no longer interested. I told you, Alfred, they're little terrorists.
Listen, before I go a little bit deeper into what's happening with World of Money now and how our audience can be involved, you know, you got your stuff online. There's been some amazing things that you're doing, in part because of the pandemic, but in part because it was the natural outgrowth of where you were taking the program. But one of the things I want you to talk about in terms of the impact is I saw on Instagram 2 young people who I mean, you could go into more detail, who are now professionally like Wall Streeters, who were kids in your program, and that transition. Talk a little bit about, you know, those students.
Oh, I love them. I love all of my World of Money moguls. I think about Garrett, who you were referencing, and Biana. Garrett first came to World of Money. His mother dragged him when he was 11, and he said, I'm too young and I don't want to go. And she said, boy, you are going. So he came to World of Money and saw all this information, this financial information on Wall Street and opportunities. Most of our instructors are African-American men. And he said, what? He saw the promised land. And it lives in Brooklyn, didn't know Wall Street existed as close as Brooklyn is. And so he has been aligned with this organization. He's a youth board member now. He just graduated from Dartmouth. He's fluent in business French. Hello, all right? Wow. And then he received plum internships at Wall Street firms, and just accepted a full-time offer on an acquisition team for a major Wall Street firm. And then Deanna, the same thing, just graduated from University of Miami State, close. So it's not about attending World of Money and you graduated and see you later. Many of our moguls, they stay very, very close and align themselves with this powerful currency. And then many have transitioned to Wall Street. But and so when I hear about this pipeline issue, World of Money is one of those pipeline organizations, but we start at age 7. Okay, we don't wait till you get to college and your credit's messed up. We start at age 7, so that many of our children don't even know that these opportunities exist. And those are just two of them. Yeah.
So talk to me now. You know, in our pre-interview before our call now, you talked about some of the changes that have happened with the program, some of which were intentional and some of which were made necessary by obviously distance learning being, the pandemic really making that not just a back burner issue or a side dish, but the main event of educators all across the country. So to talk about what World of Money was, or in terms of what I experienced when I came and spoke to the students, and what it is now and becoming to serve the needs of that are made apparent in the current environment.
Sure. So initially, the initial years, it was all classroom based. You had to live in New York or the tri-state area. It wasn't mandatory because many of our students, they come from other states to enroll at World of Money, a July institute. We typically would graduate about 175 children every single year. And then 2017, because I love technology, and so wanted to reply to the inquiries that we received from around the country or around the world. So in 2017, I developed this World of Money app that's available on the Google and Apple platform, but wanted to get back to my desk to also provide a deeper dive in terms of what children experience at World of Money with an online course. And so released or launched the World of Money Online.org, which was released a couple of days ago, and children from all around the country and from the continent of Africa are going through the courses, 160 lessons, Mandarin Chinese, live town halls, artificial intelligence. And what I love about the app that we released in 2017 and worldofmoneyonline.org is that it's by children, for children. So Alfred, you and I are not on the video talking about, and you know what you're doing, you're supposed to, no. I feel like a Bill Cosby moment, but anyway.
Right, but they're not looking for Grand Uncle Al to be, right.
I don't know where that came from, but yeah, so if you register your child, let's say they are a teenager, they will see World of Money graduates. These are not Photoshop photos. These are real World of Money children who have contributed their intellect, their voices, their imagery. And that's how you engage children. I remember testifying on Capitol Hill, and many providers were saying that they have difficulty attracting children or whomever. And I said, in terms of Black people, we have to see ourselves in the content, right? And so when it comes to children, it's no different, and particularly aligning children, particularly Black children, brown children, aligning them with this powerful conversation. It changes everything. And I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited about the response. And of course, the Black enterprises and Alfred, your support.
Well, I love everything you do. I was thinking, you mentioned Mandarin Chinese. And I remember when you first invited me to come to see the program with my own eyes. Of course, I had heard about it and we'd written about it, but I didn't, so like you said, there's lots of programs, and no dissing other programs around the country that are attempting to address this challenge of financial education, particularly with Black and brown communities. But I've seen them all. At that point, I'm like, I've seen them all. Mm-hmm. When you dropped that these kids were learning Mandarin Chinese, I was like, oh, wait, hold up, wait. This is the real, because you're teaching them not just the language of money from, again, this is the stock, this is a bond, this is the credit score, this is the fact, but the languages of business with, yes, English, of course, is spoken in business all around the world, but French, Mandarin Chinese, and that's when I was like, this is like another level. And like you said, not a 45-minute course or a 3-hour, a one-day, mini conference. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's kind of a starting point. But when you talk about 140, 160 hours of training, now you're talking about something that's going to move the needle.
That's right.
Talk to me about what it took to build that. Again, like you said, you were minding your own business, doing all the other wonderful things you do, and then this thing hit you. But what did it take to go from what most people think is a nice afternoon on a Saturday for a couple of hours to what World of Money has become today?
Sometimes you're guided in life by a vision that's larger than yourself. I would have never thought 16 years ago that I would be doing this work. But I'm very clear on where, other than ourselves, where centers of power are. And we could continue having these conversations about human and civil rights, absolutely important. But I'm waiting to have the money conversation with children. We can't, this idea of, I'm just gonna give you a little bit and talk about what we should do. We need to have access to all the information. And so people say, well, why Mandarin Chinese? Hello, In every Black neighborhood from here to Nairobi, Kenya, there is a Chinese restaurant. So shouldn't you know how to order your shrimp fried rice in Chinese? So, the other reason, and that's very important, because we're kind of ignoring 2 billion people, right, that we could do business with. And as we all know, that a lot of distribution happens from China or Asia, and they're in almost every country on the continent of Africa. As I may have mentioned, World of Money has partners in Senegal, Rwanda, and South Africa, and Ghana. There's a Chinatown in every place. So you can't go to these places and not know how to say ni hao, right? You should. And that's why, and then it's a cultural references. We've had 2 tours to China, maybe in 2017, and created heart-to-heart dialogue, still have friends that are there. So we can't afford to not knowing and not only speak not only Chinese, but the language of money. We need to be fluent in that understanding. And then I saw a CEO on CNBC, which I watch every single morning, and he said, listen, my children know Mandarin, and I want our children to have access to the same kind of education that those who have a lot of resources. So when I hear that that's what they're learning and how they're leveraging that for access and options in their life, I find an instructor and I make sure that World of Money children have that same access.
Part of the theme of this whole series that I do Beyond the Hype is to go from the surface conversation and the things that people tweet and post to kind of get to the real of what that means. Like, it's easy to say Black money matters or Black wealth matters or multi-generational wealth, or to say those things and sound very, deep and woke, in conversation.
Yeah.
But my thing is, how do you get behind that, beneath that, to what that means in your day-to-day life? And I specifically want you to speak to this idea. People talk about, multi-generational wealth, which of course Black Enterprise is all about that. That's what Mr. Graves is pushing when he created our whole company. But my thing is, if you're talking multi-generational wealth, but you're not talking to your children about money, if you're not making that part of your daily conversation the way you might talk about, church, or talk about family, or talk about music, or talk about movies, in their first conversation, which was the case with me, with no disrespect to my mama, my first real serious conversation about money and how to manage it didn't really happen until I got to Black Enterprise. I was 27 years old, 26 years old. And so you talk about the head start, the cultural head start. Like, I was one of those kids that went to college, Rutgers University, which I'm still very proud of, obviously, I talk about it all the time. But I was that kid that had the academic chops to run circles around my peers. But my socialization, my culturalization, even though what the fork to pick up at the foremost, those are the things that become barriers to your ability to walk into a room with confidence and apply for that job. So I mean, I wanted you to talk a little bit about what parents and those of us who have impact on children need to be doing with children now, including enrolling them online at World of Money online, to start this conversation and get serious about creating future moguls. Not just a nice title to put on their on their t-shirts or something, but how do we start training moguls now? Like you said, 6, 7 years old. My rule is, if they can ask for things, they can learn how money works. If they can ask you to buy stuff and they start asking about 4 years old, buy me this, buy me that, that's when the conversation starts. But what are some of the things that we should be doing if we're serious about creating moguls in the next generation?
Mm-hmm. So first comes self-inventory, self-reflection. If you're a parent, if you're a caregiver, if you're a grandparent, aunt, uncle, before we start lecturing children, we need to look at our own house. And it's absolutely not about being perfect. We can all get it together, all together, but first start thinking about, how financial education would have impacted your life, and determined to hit the reset button. Then call a meeting with your children, everyone that you live with, and say, we're going to have weekly or bi-weekly meetings as a family, and we're going to set financial goals together. child of mine, I need you to research how much everything costs in this house. And then together, separately, we're going to create a savings goal. Then we're going to research which bank, and maybe it's our own bank, maybe it's another bank that pays the highest interest that we can grow our money. Maybe it's the local bank, maybe it's not. But those kind of basic conversations, that's what we should have before we start running off and investing. But we should also look around in our life, in our homes. How many assets do we have? Okay? How many liabilities do we have? Now, I have a closet of liabilities right now, Alfred. Okay?
Who doesn't?
Now, but we need to understand that, because some of us believe that this jacket, and because it has somebody's name that doesn't look like me on the collar, that it has value. It has absolutely zero value. The assets that we need to, as a family, need to start, or individuals, if you're single, need to be intentional about accumulating assets. Those are items that increase in value over time. And one's shoes or your lipstick, as soon as I wash this off, it's gone, right? Do not decrease in value. But I understand why we have that, because I understand when Sabrina is doing purchasing, and maybe it's because I'm feeling sad that day. But I understand, okay, Sabrina, when you're reaching for that chocolate, something else is going on. I know myself, I know that I don't have to spend another nickel for at least a year. Why? I have a closet full of clothes. What now is I'm focusing totally on assets, whether it's real estate, whether it's my portfolio, definitely my education, definitely my fintech business that's in beta right now, in addition to World of Money. But my other assets, my other really important is my philanthropy, because World of Money for me is my philanthropy. I want to create a legacy where the Dantes and the Viennas and the Siennas of the world, and they've already talked about how having this information, financial education, has changed, has lowered, eradicated the chaos in their family's household. Because now it's not about getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to run out the door to buy items that have zero value on this thing called Black Friday. Black Friday is not for Black people, okay? Until we can enhance or increase the assets and the ownership in our own lives, we should not be in another store. I love stores. There's a lot of friends that own stores, but we need to balance. How do we have more liabilities than assets, and balance them? Have fun, enjoy, but still make some hard decisions, because then when you start doing that, then you're saying to not only yourself, but your future generations, and actually to the world, that you really believe that your life indeed does matter. Until that, because when we will that dollar, use that dollar, that powerful currency, we're saying, this is what I believe about myself. This is what I deserve. And if you don't wield it in terms of accumulating assets, then you have another belief about the value of your own life. So really, do Black Lives Matter? Really? Well, let's look at your money, because money, the other inventory we look at is our bank statements. That tells you your value systems. We spend money on what we value.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what's the best way for those who are listening now to engage directly, engage their children or engage themselves, and what's happening with World of Money right now?
Right, so World of Money online.org. You can register for whatever age group, for ages 7 to 21. Go through the courses, consist of videos and activities and quizzes taught by children, for children. Between now and the 28th, we'll have live programming, and then create a new schedule of live programming through the platform. So no matter where you are on planet Earth, worldofmoney.org is our headquartered website, but our online platform is worldofmoneyonline.org. Can I tell you about Waukeesa? I'm excited about Waukeesa.
Tell me whatever you're excited about, I want to hear about. You were already lit up, and then it went to another level of lit up. So go for it.
So I, doing World of Money, I travel the globe speaking on financial inclusion and financial education, and particularly when I spend a lot of time, and I do, in an African country, and there's so many businesses over there that democratize access, where if you're here in New York, you can send through a company money to your family in Nairobi or Accra. And I was so fascinated with that. So I decided that I'm going to create my own fintech because I wanted to somehow democratize access to whatever financial services, and that it's not a barrier to access based upon your citizenship, okay? Or even your economic status as well. So I created this fintech that's in beta, and yes, I'm accepting investors, called Wekeza, WEKEZA.com, and it democratizes access primarily for non-US citizens, Africa focused, so that they can invest purchasing fractional or whole shares in US publicly traded companies. Wow. So now there's no barrier to access to, so it's almost like the determination is to be the Robin Hood of the continent of Africa, okay, or in the diaspora. Right. Because until we have access to distribution streams, whether it's money or films or products, that's the final frontier when we talk about economic empowerment.
Yeah, you're right. Distribution is everything. I mean, if we didn't learn that in America with the recording industry or even with books, I mean, it's who distributes it that's, really makes the money. I mean, we have to shave off our profit margin thinner and thinner to get products and services from one place to another. So that makes sense. I'm excited. We definitely want to do more about that Wekeza, in the future to make sure people know about that. So keep us posted.
Yes.
So in this last few minutes, Sabrina, when we're talking about, particularly in the current environment, obviously, Americans are hurting. Black and brown Americans are really hurting. Again, the whole cold versus pneumonia, parable that we've all grown up with as Black people. What do you see as priorities going forward? And let's target this to Black families, particularly Black families with children, as we try to navigate out of both, as what Butch Graves calls the twin pandemics of racism and COVID. Yeah. But with a window of opportunity, given the environment, that could say this could be a really kind of a new day for coming out of this better than we went into it.
This is a tremendous opportunity to reset one's priorities and start socking. I don't care if it's a nickel away, $1 away. Unfortunately, this is not an episode. This is a marathon, and it's almost pointing us back to kind of what we should have done anyway, but this is what we have. Now we have the attention, or money has now our attention. And so obviously, making sure that, yourself, that you're taking good care of yourself, that your family is well, but start saving every nickel you can. Start finding another economic revenue stream in your life. I don't care if it's a nickel, because I hear someone saying, what about the access to capital? All right, there's some things that you can just do, right? Whether it's an Uber driver or whatever it is, but we have to have other options, so that economic options, financial options, so that we can, when the emergency happens, that we're safe. That's the priority. That's it, right there. This idea of spending, we really need to put a pause on liabilities. We really need to put a pause on it. And then also use this opportunity for, Googling or YouTube to learn something new that's going to empower yourself. There's tons of, educational opportunities, courses, of course, worldofmoneyonline.org, but there's others. How can you transform your skill set? And this may be an opportunity to pivot yourself career-wise and entrepreneurial-wise, but this is the time, people. And, life, we have this time that we're going to be here on this planet, but this is the time to really, really go for it. And, if you're thinking, well, maybe I can't, you're absolutely right. But I'm saying that absolutely that you should discard those notions of that you cannot achieve it. And everything if you believe that, I want you to fake it till you make it. Because everything that I've created was something that came in my mind. I said, I'm going for it. That's how I live. I'm going for it. So you should go for it as well and take your children with you. And while the earth is kind of pausing and quiet right now is time to go for it. And definitely, I need to see everybody at the polls. I need you to leave right now for November 3rd and be in line to vote and stay there forever. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Serena, one of the things I love about you and your program, I've been passionate about this idea that, and you hit on it even earlier, yes, we're going to borrow and spend. Like that's part of what we do as Americans. The problem is we don't, especially for us Black people, we don't realize that the wealth creation is in the saving and investing side. And so when you talk about evaluating your bank statement or evaluating what's in your home, and if every penny you bring in is going to borrowing and spending, and little to nothing is going to saving and investing, that's the root of the problem. That's the culture shift. You may never totally get away from spending. You can't. You got to spend to live. So the issue, like you said, I agree with you. It's not about wagging your finger in somebody's face about what they bought. It's about saying, okay, you spent about X amount of dollars buying this. How many dollars are going towards saving and investing? And like you said, as we come out of this, it's not only about surviving the crisis. I talked to a number of young people I mentor, and they're like, no, I'm positioning myself so when the quote unquote crisis is past, I actually have some money to invest in an opportunity, as opposed to coming out of it broke and not being able to do anything when the crisis is over. So
that's right. We need to rethink everything, and we need to be fluent in this language of money. And my banker called me the other day and he said, if you put more money in this account, then we can lower the fees or attach to it. And I said, but why would I do that? Because the interest rate that you're talking about is not more. I can get more over this other place. And he goes, yeah, well, you're right. So we need to be able to first have these conversations. Everybody should call their bank and find out what that bank is doing for them, because every deposit that you have is being used to economically empower somebody else. Okay? So you need to call your bank and make sure that they're paying you the highest interest on whatever financial product that you have in your account.
And circling back to the whole reason I had you on, it's a lot easier to have that conversation if you've been talking about money since you were 7 years old. Like it's a lot easier to challenge even the people you hire. Because most of us, I shouldn't say most of us. Yeah, I'll say most of us, not all of us, are like, well, if that's what you say I should do, I guess that's what I should do. We do that with our money, we do that with our health, because we don't feel empowered to say, well, pump the brakes on that. You work for me, I don't work for you, and this is what I want. And a lot of times, even when we know the right answer, we won't challenge because we haven't been acculturated, especially if you're a Black person, especially if you're a Black woman, you've been taught, well, the expert told you what you should do. Don't make things difficult. Just roll with it.
That's a great example. I remember when parents used to register their children at World of Money, and I would give everyone, the child and the parent, a one-page document, and I would say, complete this calculation and then sign it, and everybody would, and then down at the bottom, it's in fine print. It says, by signing this document, you owe Sabrina Lamb every nickel that you'll ever earn in your life, and then in your children's life. And then I would say, well, why did you sign it? And the answers that they would give me was, because you told me so.
Wow.
You look like you knew you were talking about. I thought that I had to do it to come to World of Money. And I said, do not do that ever again. Anytime anyone wants you to sign something, you say, I have to speak to my lawyer. Even if you don't have a lawyer, okay? Stop signing these documents and stop clicking away on online platforms and then cry about it when you have to honor your agreement. I know that's a huge issue. And if you don't feel that you can speak to power, say, no, I'm not doing that right now, or I have to do it later. I'm going to talk to my lawyer. That is saying that you have, your own self-esteem. And then when it's passed down to children, if I can give you a document, Alfred, and you've never met me before in your life, and you're signing your life away to give me everything that you've ever earned, you sign that away. Imagine the greater, the longevity of that type of behavior and the impact on that person's life. Stop it.
I'm so glad I had you on. I may have to have you back, so don't be surprised if I don't call you. Sabrina, thank you for giving me your time today. Thank you for joining Beyond the Hype for this great conversation. I'm looking forward to just everything else you're working on. You got to keep me posted, okay?
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Likewise. Yeah, this is Alfred Edmond Jr., another episode of Beyond the Hype with Black Enterprise. Thanks for joining us. Come back again.